What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Let's have another good day, and thank you for listening to us here on KC Sports Network and Outside the Trenches. I'm BJ Kissel, joined as always by former K-State All-American, 6-year NFL vet, and Super Bowl champ with the New Orleans Saints, Nick Leckey, who is in a very interesting-looking place for those watching on YouTube.
I am, and if you're watching on YouTube, those sirens are not police cars. It's the car wash, and
I
those
thought you were
stay
getting
on
raided.
all night.
I thought you were hiding out and something was going down in the middle of Kansas.
This is the Zoom background for the cool, hip uptown loft area.
The cool hip town loft area of Parsons, Kansas.
Correct, exactly. That's where I am.
Enjoy that. Well, it's been a while, man. I've actually missed you. I've missed talking to you. I know we texted and we've still been conversing, but we haven't recorded a podcast in a while, and it's not because there's been a lack of storylines that people have for June that they keep discussing. And the Le'Veon Bell saga doesn't end.
Oh my
doesn't
God.
end because everybody's
one comment on Instagram.
Who cares? That's my
it's
take.
Like,
that's
all we'll say about it. That's all we're gonna say about it.
Here's my one take, and it's not about Le'Veon Bell. It's not about what he said, because I don't care what he said. We're never going to know the full dynamics of what's going on. We're never going to know the relationship that Le'Veon Bell and Andy Reid had. At this point, they're both going to say nice things about each other. To that point, Le'Veon kind of did that, but said, I don't take it back. I feel how I feel, which is how all players feel, which is kind of what I said when I tweeted, we're never going to know the dynamics of the context. We're going to get bits and pieces of just like everything. We're never going to get the full story of anything. So it's hard to jump on anything and say, well, This is definitively messed up because of this reason. It's because he's washed because of this. I was like, all that could be true. But if he was told he was going to play and then he didn't, I can see why he's upset. Now the team can be like, well, we thought you were going to be this and you ended up being this. Doesn't change that the player thinks he's that. And he was told one thing. I have no idea what happened. We're never going to get the full story. So I'm never going to get too worked up about anything anyone said who's not on our team anyway.
I agree with you 100%.
You don't want to have any other takes other than that?
No, I don't. I really don't.
I love it. I
100% don't. It's just,
and I don't either. That's why we're moving on here very, very quickly. But we will not move on quickly from our love of Jack Stack Barbecue, because they are our good friends who supported us from the beginning. And not to get cheesy with it, Nick, but it's been nice. That was good. So, but for people who've been following us or supporting, outside the trenches or in the trenches a few years ago, you'd know that none of this with KC Sports Network would have happened had Jack Stack not stepped up and wanted to support what we had going on from the beginning and our vision of what, we could do for Chiefs fans. All of this is for Chiefs fans about figuring out ways to efficiently deliver you quality content, on all our different shows. And Nick and I joke about like changing the format of this show. This one's going to be a little bit different than some of the outside the trenches you've seen in the past and heard in the past. We're always going to, kind of talk about the storylines, things that people are talking about. But Nick, where I think you and I both do is kind of diving deep a little bit more into some like bigger type questions rather than getting into the minutia of the details of every practice squad move and all those things that I know you really got into over the years, and I had to. But the lab guys, they do that. And we want to make KC Sports Network and the entire podcast channel and all our Chief shows different from one another. So those guys are twice a week. They're going to break down every little thing. They're going to break down the offenses and the defenses, and we'll share our thoughts on that. And then Mike DeVito and Jeff Allen's one-on-one show is going to give you the player perspective. And then Nick and I are going to be some weird place in the middle. And who knows where our conversations will go. I'm actually excited about this one today. We talked a little about Le'Veon just because everyone's talking about that, but we're not going to give that any more time. But we should talk a little bit about the Kyle Long news, just because, a lot of people, the fact that he didn't play last year, like he needs to get reps, that was important for him to get out and run around a little bit, just to be around the team and to know the offense, know the lingo and all that stuff. But this guy's been around. It's not going to take him a long time to figure that out. So the fact that he's reportedly going to be ready by the regular season is great news. And it gives an opportunity for what is going to be a very competitive group of Chiefs offensive linemen going into training camp. It gives guys like Trey Smith more reps with the first team. And Nick, I listened to Mike DeVito and Jeff Allen's podcast the other day. And guys, if you have not listened to it, guys and girls, if you have not listened to it, go back and listen to that podcast, because they get into some stuff about OTAs and veteran players and where they can find value in going to OTAs as a trench player 5-6 years into the same offense or defense. Like Mike said, like this is useless. Let me go to the weight room. Like it doesn't do me any good to be out here. But we're gonna give a little bit of all the different perspectives. But I love what those guys had to say about trench players and those young guys getting reps, and that's going to come back to pay dividends down the road because you're going to need all those guys.
Yeah, you do. And if you're Kyle Long, what you do is you get a script for the day and you follow your position, and you can stand right behind everybody. You can watch your position. You can see, okay, this is the play that's called. You listen in the huddle, and you make your calls. You go through your stance. You kind of react to what you're doing, and it's you ultimate. Like every vet knows, if you're hurt, take mental reps. And it's true what they say about mental reps. The older you get, the more you appreciate them because you can really kind of fine tune your technique. You can fine tune, your footwork, and it's a great opportunity for him to learn a new system, a new language. And I always tell people, like learning one offense, another offense. It's like learning a different language. You got to translate it into your old language, and then that's how you hear it. So it's like like scat right. Oh, now that's 74 pro. Okay, that's what we do. So 74 pro. Okay, scat right. Okay, here's what you do.
Yeah, if you got 4 a week, you slide protection. It's automatic. I remembered.
No, it's not.
That was what you told me once. I remembered that.
If we're in a slide protection and it's 4 a week, then you do a full slide. You do the fire.
I was half right.
You're half. No, you
4
had
a week.
Right.
Okay. Don't question. I remember very specific random things that are only going to serve me well on this podcast with little nuggets with you, but then you ruin it because you don't remember.
Listen, I'm
so proud of myself.
I'm like one play at a time. I'm sorry for just crushing you. I apologize. I tried
to sound like I knew what I was talking about on the field right there. I'm normally I know what I don't know, but I felt like I knew something there. I got excited and you're like, no.
You did. Well, it's just the context was not there. Like I'm a total what's my frame of thought? It could be anything. And then it's like, here's the play. Okay, now I got my frame of thought. We're good.
My frame of thought is you told me that once. I repeated it.
I like
not
that.
Actually something happening on the field.
You said it with so much confidence too. I'm sorry.
Just when like things connect in your brain as you're talking.
Oh hell yeah!
Like, ooh, this was a good one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Nope. All right. Anyway, what I want to do on this podcast, and like we said, the format was going to be a little bit different because besides the Le'Veon Bell drama that is non-news but is news because it's June and there's not a lot going on and media can't get access to the players. So everybody's using the same media to tell stories. So when things like this happen, it's like throwing water to a bunch of people in the desert. That's why you're going to get over analyzation. Like there's nothing happening and people have to create content at all these different places. And when there's not a lot happening, everybody's going to jump on the same few things. And so I know he stirred it back up. Le'Veon did with a string of tweets tonight, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Not good, bad, disrespectful anyway. Don't go after Andy Reid publicly. It's not going to serve you well. But at the end of the day, like we won't ever know the full story. And if he's unhappy on his way out that it didn't work out well, didn't really work out as well as most people thought. I thought that it was going to work out better than it did, but it didn't. So you move on and you don't tweet bad things about Andy Reid. Bad idea.
Yes, I agree 100%. You do not. BJ, let's talk about your topic. You had a great topic.
Oh yeah.
And I loved it. I love the concept of comparing this generation versus the old generation. And it's like, you got to define the generation. So I'll let you set it up.
Yeah. It started from a tweet that I saw that just said, if social media were around 30 or 40 years ago.
So just social media, right? Just social media.
Yeah. So I'm going to take it a step further when I started overthinking the question. Never happens for me. But if you take, so like 30 or 40 years ago, if they had social media, it just said a lot of your heroes wouldn't be heroes. And it got me thinking, it was like, that's exactly right. And then it got me thinking, what's more difficult, being a professional athlete or a professional football player, in today's day and age, or to be a professional football player back in like the 70s, where like horse collars and like there was no such thing as like any rules on the field. Like guys just kind of did what they wanted to do. And it was a lot less safe on the field. Not that it's safe. I mean, it's a violent game, but back then it was a lot less safe for the players and they put rules and all those things in now. But on the flip side, back in the day, like you could do whatever you want on the field and then off the field, you kind of do whatever you want too, where players nowadays are under so much more scrutiny. Right off the top of your head, when you hear it, do you think it would be more difficult to go back then and play or right now and play? Because there's so many variables here. Where do you want to start?
Okay, so we have two questions.
Yep.
It's playing on the field which is harder, and then social media and how you don't have like how media would cover for players, like even as early as, early 2000s.
Well, nowadays everybody with a phone is media.
That's correct.
Like everybody can put something on Twitter, and
we're a surveillance state. Yeah. Like
back in the day, it was like you had the one beat writer and like one TV guys, like just be friends with those guys and
that's it.
You'll be all right.
Exactly.
Not everybody had a camera in their pocket.
Well, it's like our friend at the liquor store when they signed Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
Katie, was it Katie? Right?
Yeah.
Katie. Yeah.
West Plaza.
Like, I mean, how that's like so cool. Like stuff like that is cool. So answer your first question. With safety issues, it would be much harder to play back in the day because I mean, there was no escaping it. Like as an O lineman, you could punish D lineman if you were an asshole, and you could chop block people. Like you could set someone up and you could like stand them up, and then your guard could come in and just cut them and go after them. And what that stems from was the real hatred for each other because free agency wasn't a thing, right?
Yeah.
You were one career, one team for X amount of years, and that's all you knew. Whereas nowadays, shit, it happened to me. I got cut in 2007 from Arizona and then 2 weeks later, I'm in St. Louis playing Arizona. And it was like, oh, that's why, you got to be nice because you don't know when you're going to be whatever. It's like you get your action in the field, but having to worry about headshots, having to worry about clothesline, you injury, you get cut immediately with no repercussions. Yeah, it's definitely much harder back in the day.
Yeah, and there's so many things going on because this is such a layered, like nuanced thing.
So layered. Yeah.
About the different ways in which players are taken care of. Because yeah, I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with this, but as a trench player, like back in the day, like when you go back and watch some of like the techniques and the things that were taught back then, the way that they're taught now, like how much more different is the O-line play taught now compared to what was back then? Because with some fools, like with some coaches and schemes, it's like you can't reinvent football. Like it's all based on the same few things and it just kind of scatters from there. Everybody kind of puts their own stamp on it. But as far as like the technique type things and the safety and the way that the game is taught now compared to what it was taught then, can you watch old film and see a technique, or was it like things being taught now to be more safe? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was the technique from an offensive line perspective was so bad. It looked like Navy football, right? Where you're in a track stance, like you're about to go for the 100-meter dash, and you're just firing off the line and just trying to cut something. And
there was with the crown of your helmet.
Oh yeah, like even the top. Yeah, exactly. You're spearing people. And nowadays it's so like it's subtle. Like all the stuff is subtle now that you see. Like I can see like hand movements and tugging of the jerseys ever so gently to influence direction and change. And people are more on the same page. I think Duke Manyweather with O-line Masterminds, I think that was such a cool thing that he started, that trend. And so, yeah, you look at old film, like, God, I couldn't play. Like when you got to put your arms up like this, make the fists to each other and stick your elbows out. Like that was so whack. Like it's just, yeah, it's archaic to look back. And by the way, what's 30 years to you? Just say it, go 1970s. That was 50 years ago.
Yikes.
Right,
man. But see, part of it's such a nuanced thing though, because I feel like a lot of the fandom that comes from the league of people in our generation and a couple generations above us, we love football because we grew up hating other teams and players because of how they played. And now with free agency, you still have that like feeling, and then you pass that along, and like fandom is generational, especially amongst Chiefs Kingdom. We talk about that, but like the players hating each other kind of died with like Steve Smith and the Steelers. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that was the last kind of like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, but then they're like friends. So it was just like, they were just good. So you kind of manufactured all this stuff. Like where's like the deep down, like dirty hatred for like people you're playing against? Like I miss that. And I will watch that anywhere around the NFL. Maybe it's Le'Veon Bell now. This can like, can we get this big enough to like drum up something real?
Get him out there.
It's not.
No, it's not. I mean, well, and it's, I think football was, I think even like when I played in 2004, I know just with the Cardinals and we weren't that good. So football really wasn't a big deal, but I feel like there was a time like 2006, 2007 I think once AstroTurf was eliminated from Indianapolis and from St. Louis, from their domes, then it became modern day football. That's two moderns. And it's like, you don't have the hatred. You don't have the animosity towards each other. And I think it's come down to all the safety things, right? Like all the stuff where you can have linebackers patrol in the middle, giving cheap shots. You can't have safeties coming up, and it's become entertainment. Almost like, and I'm not dissing it in any way, but it's become WWE, right? Where it's what are people wearing, right? Fantasy football players, right? So if you root for the Chiefs, you root for another teammate on Oakland or another guy on Oakland because he's a fantasy guy, right? So it's just, I think that's what it is, and fans experience that too now.
I don't sit here and hate on it now because it's still like the most popular sport, and because of all of those different reasons. But I feel like the foundation of it was built because of players just not getting along, and like you followed those storylines throughout it all. Like I remember as a kid going to that 49ers Chiefs game when Joe Montana was with the Chiefs and going up against Steve Young. It's like, ooh, like these guys don't like each other. Like, this is going to be good. Where you don't really have that anymore. And even if they try to make it fake, then everybody just like attacks. Like
you see it.
Players can't be honest. Like we've had this conversation before, and it kind of bleeds into the rest of the conversation just about, if players 30, 40 years ago had social media, or if people had social media, how would certain people be viewed? And to not turn the podcast and just that guy wouldn't be liked and that guy wouldn't be liked, because they come to the top of the mind right now. But let's not have this turn into that.
Yeah, no.
But just in general, I think it would open a lot of eyes to people that wouldn't romanticize some people the way that they do. And I think it would lead to probably a lot more benefit of the doubt being given to players today that walk a much finer line, that are held to a much higher standard as people, not just as athletes. And that's stuff that I want to get into because I can't imagine being a player today's, and I've always sided with the players if that's not completely obvious by this point on most things, but I can't imagine just living that way now, the way players do. Like the really good, like not to make it about haves and have not, like the all-stars, but guys who are recognized when they go out in public, like can't do anything. You see Tyrann Mathieu being gracious with his time and always signing and doing that stuff when he's out with his kids coaching baseball. Like it takes a special person to always be on like that and always be willing to stop and talk with people. And I will always praise it because it is special, because that is not leaving work and going and being a person. That is, you are always that person. And I know they make a lot of money and they do all this. They still got a right to live their lives and have bad days and have that stuff where they can have things that go wrong. And they've always got a camera in their face. They're one road rage incident away from being on SportsCenter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it would be stressful.
It is. Well, and I think what it does too, over a long enough time period, your assholeness is revealed. And I think there are every, like, you know how it is. There's maybe on every team, there's 2 or 3 guys who you're like, he's a grade A prick, like for real. And if he's out and about long enough, he will get exposed. Yeah. And then if you look at a guy look at Jerry Seinfeld, right? Or you say like Jerry Seinfeld accepts the fame and moves on. Hey, you want a picture? I'm walking down the street. Okay, cool. All right, now I'm going to continue my shopping. So if you don't make it a big deal, no one makes it a big deal. But if you try to be like, hey, no cameras, then they want to see more. Right. Then they're like, oh, no, now we want, it's like putting a velvet rope in front of a door. Right. Yeah.
If you take a picture with everybody, then eventually everybody's going to be like, hey, Jerry, like I already got a picture with you.
Yeah. Like I'm good. Like, oh, I saw him last week at the baseball tournament. I also, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth. Right. Okay. But like, I remember those guys were romanticized, all this stuff. And then come to find out, those guys were like womanizers, alcoholics, all this different stuff. So you want to talk about different eras. I would say what changed 24-hour news cycle. Yeah,
exactly. Columbus. Like, come on.
No, I look at
let's just tear down everybody. Let's just be honest about everybody.
Those were the two that were romanticized. They were heroes. Kids looked up to them. But no, come to find out, all this stuff happened and they were protected. Right. Yeah. They were protected by media. And I don't know when it happened, where I would say 24-hour news cycle, right? Having to constantly fill ad time, fill the air time. So now you're looking for dirt on anybody. And sad to say, with our society, dirt grabs a headline, and I'm guilty of it too.
Or that's
dirt
what they found
headlines.
out. Or just the dirt found out, like, holy cow, look what kind of numbers they're getting. And then numbers drew advertising, and then it's all sliding scale, platforms. And it's like, hey, you get paid based on the number of people that click on it, because the more people see the ads, you get more money. It incentivizes crap content, which is literally what we're trying to fight against at KC Sports Network. And I'm going to take this whole thing down the tube, trying to prove that there are a lot of just common sense minded people that just want to hear Chiefs news. They just want to be engaged with the team in some way or another, and they want to be informed, entertained, all the things that we talked about on our taglines with KC Sports Network. If you want to learn the X's and O's and the nerdy stuff, you've got the laboratory. If you just want to hear two guys randomly talking about different things, you can listen to Outside the Trenches, and then Mike and Jeff do their thing. Exactly. I will get fired up if we start talking about incentivizing crap content, because it's very prevalent, and it spreads into it's not like it's in a silo. Like, that idea, you can manifest itself in so many different ways, in so many different fields, that you can literally connect that in so many different ways to all industries and everything.
You can, and it has, and it's become trash, where the internet used to be this great thing, and now it's just clickbait. Like, everything is clickbait and a bunch of crappy ads I don't want to see.
Yeah. Do I need to go to TikTok to get some good news? Like, what? Clubhouse, is that still a thing? Clubhouse was just like so popular for like 6 weeks, and now it's
we have no clue. We have no clue what we don't know about computers and the internet. Right. We're all basic graphical user interfaces, and we don't know how to write code. And if the power goes out, on our computers nowadays for the Wi-Fi, our computers are paperweight. My iPad's a paperweight. There's nothing that's not internet based.
Can you imagine going on a vacation now without like a cell phone? Just like going on a flight and going somewhere. I mean, I'm sure you can. That would be amazing. But like with kids and family, like, I can't imagine going somewhere for like 6 hours and not having my phone, where if something happened, like, somebody could get a hold of me. Like, that's what I've been doing the whole time. How did we get off? How did we talk about this stuff?
Because I'm tangent. And that's why.
Can we please get back on topic here and talk about whether or not it's harder to be an athlete in today's society, or I did it again. Harder to be a professional football player in today's society than it was 50 years ago. Because it's
50 seconds. Right? You mean the late 90s? That's 30 years ago. No, I think it's honestly, I think it's easier. I always knew in college that I was in a fishbowl, and I had that mentality where it's not a sense of, you can't like Patrick Bateman, American Psycho, and just put on your mask or whatever, right? And just say, okay, here's what I am. I'm whatever. You just have to be like, here's my new normal. I'm always under a microscope, and everything I do can be recorded. That's how you live. And once you get into that habit, you go on autopilot. You're like, okay, this is how I exist, and you can't get mad at people. You can't do anything like that. You can't step out of line. You never want to give people, let them see your other side, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say
the people who handle it the best, I think, are the ones who understand that no matter what I do, people are going to say good things. People are going to say bad things. I can't control that. But if I'm a genuinely, like, looking at myself as them, like, if I'm a genuinely good person, eventually, like, that's just going to be what's more reported, because that's the truth. So I'm not going to worry about trying to like fight this narrative. Like, they said this about me, and I'm going to go do this. The ink sniffers. Like, I heard that phrase once, and there were a few that went through the Chiefs. Like, if you wrote something about them, like, you 100% knew they were going to read it. And if it wasn't like exactly the way they wanted, they might not say anything because it was passive aggressive, but then they would just like stare. They wouldn't talk to you. They wouldn't answer your question, like whatever it was. And then you find out later that that mindset is so destructive to being a professional athlete, especially a football player at any team, let alone a team that's covered as much as the Chiefs are. Chiefs fans are awesome as a whole. They do a lot of phenomenal things, but Twitter as a thing is a cesspool.
Yeah.
And so not to go off on another tangent, but we talk about like players in today's day and age and like the relationship they have with fans, is I think a lot of fans assume that most players know that the majority of fans are good, but that doesn't mean the majority of their mentions on social media have the same ratio of good fans to not good fans. And that's not always easy for the player to decipher through. If you look from the player's point of view, they get on the phone and they're just getting like bashed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, no matter what it is. It's Tyrann Mathieu right now. And I will be the one first banging the table if they don't pay Tyrann Mathieu. Yeah. But all of his like cryptic tweets and whatever he's doing, and people think they're cryptic tweets, and it's like it could be anything. Like these guys have lives besides just ragging on, like getting fans all riled up, thinking that that's all fans are doing on Twitter, which actually it is, which I think they should have some fun with, but that's just me.
I mean, and, you know, I love Twitter. It's a tool, and it can be used for good. It could be used for harm. You know, it's kind of however you want to. And, you know, we're adults, and I think if you get on, you should know that, hey, grain of salt. And I would like it if social media made you actually put a picture on or something of your face or something, a current whatever, and your actual name, and not to find you or something like that, but just say, okay, is this how you want to speak, knowing that this is permanent, and that, you know, it can be deleted, but someone can screenshot it and, you know, hold it against you. So it's one of those things where you just have to accept that. And the quicker you accept that as an athlete, that know that when you're getting big times, when you get a lot of haters. And I think you should take that as a sign of, you know, same people always trolling you. Maybe they didn't like you in college, or maybe I love the stories of, I heard this guy's an asshole. And it's like I'm like, what was your experience? And like, well, they were signing some stuff and didn't sign my autograph. I'm like, that's why you're bagging them. And it's the same thing where you eat a shitty restaurant. Like,
my buddy used to do that in college. He was like, my roommate used to go get autographs from like Adrian Peterson when he played at Oklahoma. Like he would go and like hide in the parking lot or wait in the parking lot until they came out and then get him to sign a football, and then he'd sell it and he'd make $300 and he'd have beer money for the entire month. And I'd be making fun of him like, you're a nerd. And he was like, yeah, that nerd just got his beer paid for the entire month.
That's good.
But he would say, like, in the autograph seekers, people would be like, oh, that guy's kind of a dick. Like, why? Because he wouldn't sign for you and he was holding his daughter and you popped out behind his car and scared the hell out of him.
Right, exactly.
And he just wasn't happy to sign your football. Like these guys have lied. Like, go pay $50 to his autograph signing, and like everybody else does. Right. You know? And nowadays, the guys who sign a lot, their signatures are going to be worth very much. The guys who don't sign a lot, their signatures are going to be worth more because they're controlling it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not signing a lot of stuff.
No, they're not.
And if their people sign everything for them.
Exactly. Or if you saw, like, you know, if any fan went to a hotel or buses, there's like 20 people with like helmets and pictures and footballs, and you're like, they're not fans. They're just making money. And, you know, I respect them for doing it. Yeah. They're making money however they can. But I'm like, I don't.
I've never been like a jersey where I have a few jerseys and I've worn them a couple of times, but I was never like a big jersey person.
Yeah.
For that, it just felt weird. And as a grown person, when I see like guys autographing, like, I understand the grind. I'm not knocking that hustle. It just feels dirty. Like you're making money off somebody else's signature. Somebody like liking it. The like name, image, likeness thing. That's like the worst example of it to me.
Yeah. It's a good
buy something signed by a player, then buy it from the player and have the player sign it.
Right. Or get it off eBay. Right.
That's where all that stuff ends up. Yeah. No, or it ends up on Facebook in one of those groups.
That's exactly where it does.
Whatever it is. It's always like the black jerseys too. Like the most hideous looking things.
I love the black. You don't like black? I love black jerseys.
No.
Oh, I love black.
Not for the Chiefs. Not for the Chiefs. No.
Yes, for everybody. Everybody should have some.
K-State, yes. Black and purple. Let's go.
That would be awesome.
All right. Any other takes that we need to make regarding would it be harder or easier? And the other thing that I will say, and this could be a hot take, maybe not the last thing to put on the show, just in sports in general, especially talking 70s, and I know the game was different, but even if you took players in today's day and age, if you took the Chiefs team last year that lost the Super Bowl and their offensive line got their tail kicked the entire game, you put them up in the 70s, I think they win the game 50-0.
Versus 70s like D-line.
I just don't think that athletes back then could get anywhere close to athletes today.
No.
I just don't think they're going to stop. Like Tyreek Hill in the 70s. Come on. Like nobody's touching that guy.
That's a cheat code. No, and just, I mean,
the way the game's played
differently. Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes throwing against 70s defensive backs. Like, I understand that he might have his head taken off and like the way that they played back then, but athletes and the way the passing game and all that, it's like baseball. Like those pitchers way back in the day were throwing like 84, you know, like they just,
that was a fastball.
Yeah. Like there's all this research and it's been a long time. I'm sure people on Twitter will tell me how wrong I am, but like the way that the game has evolved and the athletes have evolved, all the pitchers now throwing 96, 97 back in the 60s, like no chance. I know like who was it? Bob Gibson. Like they lowered the mound because of like his season with the Cardinals because it was so tall, and then they lowered it. But even he I don't think was throwing like in the mid to upper 90s. And the way the hitters are, and just look at them look at you talk about Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle.
They would
like,
not
look
survive.
at Babe Ruth and baseball players in general. Like,
yeah, correct.
John Kruk and Tony Gwynn, all these guys, just loved watching these guys play growing up. But maybe it's a hot take, I don't know, but I just feel like any professional sports team right now would boat race any other professional sports team from 50 years ago in any sport.
Put like the best teams from the 70s, like the Steelers and Cowboys, versus like whoever the worst team is right now. And you have technology, you have, game advancements, technique advancements. It was archaic, man. It was like that movie Time Cop with Jean-Claude Van Damme, where the guy goes back in time to steal Confederate gold, and he's got like Uzis, right? He's got like Uzis with like infrared sights versus a flipping musket, right?
Or just the Star Wars series, like the first three, Yoda all of a sudden is just like complete jujitsu, like the fight scenes in like the first three terrible movies. And then you go watch like A New Hope, and you're just like, they forgot how to fight for a few years.
They did. They really did. It was just, that was the whole trilogy of 1, 2, and 3 episodes were whatever. That's a podcast for another time, right?
I feel like they forgot to do a focus group or something about like, hey, is this a terrible movie?
It was a troll job, straight up troll job. They're like, whatever, we're just going to do a new thing. And it's like, yeah, I like the 70s effects better.
Here we go again. We spend this whole time not talking about the Chiefs, but that was the somewhat idea of the new concept of what we're going to do. So we're always going to spend the first 10 minutes of the show kind of breaking down the top storylines and what people are talking about, just kind of give our takes on that. But when we're going to get really in depth, it's going to be in some other topics like we did with this one regarding would it be easier or more difficult to be a player today or 50 years ago back in the 70s for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
Yeah, I did the math again correctly.
You did the math. I know.
Stutter that time.
That was amazing.
But you wouldn't let me close out the show, so now you get to do it. I was on a roll.
No, that was a great roll.
Close the show, Nick.
That's a wrap. Chiefs Kingdom.
This guy's fired. I'm looking for a new co-host. Send me your resumes.
Let me vet him first, though. I want to have a good replacement.
Peace. Have a good day, Chiefs.
See ya. I like that. I like that.